Hello to anybody that is joining us and watching us around the internet. I'm Piper Ramsey-Sumner, and I'm here with Jessica Taylor, and we are part of the Fresh Expressions Florida team. And we're here today talking about Rural Church Rising.
Yes, so Rural Church Rising is coming soon. It's going to be this October, so you can get it on your calendar. Registration's open already. This is a 2-day conference. It's for lay people and clergy people serving in rural contexts around the connection. So if you're anywhere from Washington State to Florida to Minnesota, Illinois, all of this is just for you. And it's going to be held on the beautiful grounds of Warren Willis Camp in Fruitland Park, Florida. This is just a wonderful time of retreat and learning and exploring the grounds and really tuning into what God's calling you to do.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited because I've never been to Warren Willis, but everybody here in Florida always talks about how great it is, and it's right on the lake, and it's going to be really nice. I think especially in October, if people are wary about going to a camp in Florida, it'll be in a nice part of the time of the year, late October. So hopefully it'll be really nice if people can be wearing t-shirts and jeans and things like that. You know more about that, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the why of this conference. Why are we doing a rural church, something that has to do with the rural church, and then why spinning it in this fresh expressions kind of way? And it was kind of my idea because when I first started working with Fresh Expressions here in Florida, I was living in a rural context. I was living out where my husband grew up in Hosford, Florida, if anybody knows where that is. It's just a completely different culture, a completely different environment than what it is even in Tallahassee, which is not a really big city. There's just so many cultural differences. It's like an entirely new, separate set of challenges. And so that creates a situation in which the Fresh Expressions kind of method doesn't work exactly. And so that's kind of where it started. What did you think about it, Jessica, when we first started talking about this rural conference?
I thought it was great. We've served in rural contexts before, and it is very different. I think we've served kind of suburban and then more rural. And rural context, there's things are more spread out, but there's also just a different culture. There's a culture of a community, and there's kind of deep roots within that community. And sometimes churches kind of either are in that and they're thriving, and then other times it's how do we find the community? How do we embrace the community, or how do we create that community within our rural context?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you think about like if you work with children or youth or college students, they are kind of always coming in and out, in and out. And in a rural context, a lot of the times it's 2, 3, 4 generations live like families that are living in these places, and the pastors are the ones that are kind of coming in and out, in and out. Sometimes they are part of the community, they also grew up there, but sometimes if they're appointed, they're like almost kind of like an outsider, and it creates a completely different, I think, approach to ministry that has to be considered. And another thing is that the rural areas are changing and shifting just like any other kind of urban suburban areas where people are not going to churches often, or there's more and more people who are raising their children outside of church or who are leaving the church. And so we see the similar cultural shifts, but it's still unique, but it's very similar to what we see in the Fresh Expressions movement when we're thinking about, I guess, the inherited kind of traditional church.
There's definitely a shift too, as well as people are moving into the countryside, getting land, homesteading. They're coming out into rural context. So there's families that are moving into these spaces as well, that are moving into communities. I know we've got family in very rural Montana, and their town was very, very small. And just in the last couple of years, it's started to grow, and it's all young people coming in, and they're having farms, and they're going back to that. So that is a kind of cultural shift, which is really interesting, but the church has a place in that as well. And how can we use Fresh Expressions to reach out to people who might be moving into the community, as well as those who've been there for quite a while?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's where I think some of the things that the goals of this conference as we are putting it together is to create a deeper understanding of our contexts. And so that involves deep listening. One of our speakers, Luke, talks a lot about deep listening and spiritual listening. And so what does that look like beyond just looking up demographics? You know, how do you go a little bit deeper than that? And then partnering with other churches. Creating a kind of collaborative participation in ministry that's very, very vital in small towns and in spaces where there just literally aren't that many people. And so partnering together is an obvious step that you would think to make when you're trying to build something that brings together a whole community. And then kind of that missing third space. Jessica, you talk a little bit about first, second, third spaces?
Yeah. So within the Fresh Expressions language, we use this language of first, second, third space. So first place would be where you live, your home. Your second place is going to be kind of the next place you go. Work could be that for a lot of people. But the third space is where you have recreation. It's where you go for downtime. It's fun places. There's could be restaurants or bowling alleys, some different spaces that people gather in. And those third spaces are really where a lot of Fresh Expressions take place. And the rural context can sometimes miss that. Sometimes you don't have a restaurant for miles and miles and miles, or you don't have a bowling alley in your town or a movie theater or something like that. So that's when we are reimagining what the church property can be and using the church property as a space that is a gathering place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not just for the people that go to church, but for the whole community. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I will reiterate again, who is invited. It's not just Florida and it's not just clergy. We want people from anywhere who are serving in rural contexts who or maybe are on their way, maybe in the future they might be heading that direction, or leaders who are working with people who are in rural areas. So around the country, maybe around the world. That would be kind of fun. Of course, everybody that's speaking is American in an American context, but who knows? That could be fun. Speaking of who's presenting, we have an amazing group of people. I'm really excited. This is like the best part, is that we have these awesome speakers and presenters from all around the country who are coming together to encourage and to teach and to share their experience in building these new Christian communities in rural contexts. First, of course, we are going to be joined with our bishop here in Florida, Bishop Tom Berlin, which is really exciting. Another one is Elaine Heath, and so she is going to share her expertise, her theology, and her approach to evangelism, as well as what she has been doing in North Carolina, her ministry that is a farm and a community that is sharing life together in a rural setting. And then we have Tex Sample, who some of you might know. He is a United Methodist scholar who talks about working with the working class, and he calls people that he is specifically speaking to cultural traditionalists. So he's going to be a little bit of a kind of a dive into the culture and also into what can new communities look like there. Do you want to hop in and tell a couple more people?
Yeah, so then we have Chris and JD Smith. They're from North Carolina, and they serve a really unique rural context, and they are doing ministry with different cultures. So JD is Hispanic. There's a large Hispanic population there, and they've kind of blended the cultures into this beautiful union, just as their marriage is. And they kind of tie that in. So they've got some beautiful stories of how cross-culturally they've made this blended culture church and how that has worked in their context. And even just stories of like restaurants taking place in people's homes, because that's the rural context. So they operate a bunch of Fresh Expressions, and they're going to come teach us. And then we've got Stacy Spence Baldwin, who is really a circuit rider. She has led the charge on some small congregations that were really on the brink of closure in rural contexts, and she's gone in there and really revived the church. She's done that. She is currently, I think, 3 or 4 point charge appointed, and these churches are all working together. They're doing fresh expressions. They're reaching out to their community in new ways, really living into the fig tree and being that story. And then we've got Micah, and Micah is really a fresh expressions guru, consistently pushing. He works in fresh expressions. He's worked in the rural context, and he's just a gift of wisdom that's coming down. And he's a young person who has a lot of energy as well. So he'll just be a gift for anybody who wants to hear from him. And then we have Luke Edwards from North Carolina as well. And Luke is really deep listening. Listening Church, if you haven't heard of Listening Church, you've got to check it out, because Luke's doing a ton of work in that. And he knows the rural context. He's served in the rural context. He's kind of, he's got it all there. And then we finish up right now with our basic list. We're adding more speakers still, but we finish off with Michael Beck, who has served in the rural context and has done 13 fresh expressions, revitalized a congregation, blended the cultures with across race lines, and has really taken a town from a space of declining congregation into a healed congregation that is really reflective of the kingdom of heaven.
Yes, I'm really excited. We've got such a great lineup. And I think I'm going to skip around because I want to talk a little bit about the structure of how we're going to do it. So we are offering on the afternoon before. So on October 26th, which is the Thursday, we're going to have a pre-conference retreat. And we have a spiritual director, Lauren Baber, who's going to lead that. And she's going to, I'm imagining lots of time out in nature, maybe something creative. She's really wonderful about those kinds of things. And she's great with groups. And so she's going to lead a spiritual retreat. And then we're going to also offer a session with Michael. So it'll be a small group. So it'll be very much kind of a one-on-one interactive learning session with him to kind of start to kick off the weekend. And then that evening, we're going to go into town and grab something to eat and have a bit of a networkers lunch together or dinner together with any of the speakers and presenters who are already there. And so that'll be a really great time. And then the next morning is when we really kick off. And we're going to have worship sessions and some learning sessions, which is where the speakers are going to come up and actually do their speaking. And we're going to get to hear from all of them, each of them. And then we're also going to do some really cool workshops. And so you'll hear from those speakers again. You'll have a chance to hear from at least, we set it up right so everybody could potentially hear from each one if they tried hard enough at the workshops, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then we have some activities that we're hoping to do. We were talking about maybe hosting a couple kind of immersion style fresh expressions like gatherings so you can experience them. So like we had a yoga church, I think was one of them, a dinner church. We should get Stacy to bring her horses and she can do something with her horses. Wouldn't that be awesome? I don't know.
Good stuff with the therapy sessions, horses. They do such good work up there.
Yeah. Do they have horses at Warren Willis?
They don't. I don't know that the grounds are, I guess they're large enough. I'm here right now, so that's why I'm looking out the window. But,
yes, you're an expert.
I guess they're not really, maybe I've never seen a horse here. So, but they have really beautiful grounds. There's 2 sides of the camp. So there's a camp side, which has all of the cabins and a lot of activities. That's where summer camp takes place for a lot of youth. They'll be doing that right now in a couple of weeks. So cover them in prayer over the next couple of weeks. I think the counselors are arriving here for their training. So just be in prayer for them as they go through that. But on this side we're going to be on is going to be the conference side, and we can cross over to both sides. The conference side has a beautiful sunset every night. There are 3 docks, I think 3, maybe 2, but there are docks that you can just sit and open your Bible, just be in prayer. There are walks, silent paths that you can walk down, and prayer labyrinths. If you're kind of more of the adventurous person or kind of sportsy, there is a bouldering wall and volleyball, disc golf, basketball, 9 square, Gaga Ball. So there's kind of all of that on the within the grounds. The lodging is going to be kind of motel style. There are rooms that we're going to be in. They're air conditioned. They have all of your own units, privacy, just like you'd get in a hotel. And we'll be meeting in a dining hall for our meals, which is right on the ground. So you'll just kind of walk right out to the dining hall, and then we'll have a big room in the middle of the camp. So it's really centrally located too in Florida. You've got 3 different airports that we would suggest looking at. Of course, Orlando International Airport is about an hour to an hour and a half from here. We've got the Sanford Orlando Airport, which is about an hour. And then we've also got Gainesville Regional Airport. So those are 3 airports that you can look at if you're flying in. If you're locally coming in and you want to stay in the grounds and come and drive in, you can come and stay with us for a couple days. If you are a commuter, so you live within a distance that you're willing to travel, we do have commuter rates as well if you would just like to drive in and stay in your home.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because it is kind of a rural area, so we're gonna have. I hope we'll have some folks who are local who are like, well, that's right down the road for me. So we offer those lower rates for people who don't need the lodging, and then we're also offering an early bird. So if you register before July 1st, you get I think it's like 15 or so % off. And so we're encouraging folks, if you can make the decision soon and your schedule's open and you want to do it, then go ahead and go for it in the next month or so. Yeah, anything else, any other things you can think of that we need to share?
That's it. I mean, just a great time to come down to Florida in October. If you're here, Florida's beautiful in October. The camp is just wonderful. If you're really in a place that you're feeling stuck in your ministry, or there's what's the next step in your ministry, this is going to be a time where you can come, gather, have time to be in prayer, get away for a few days so that you can really listen intentionally. We're going to talk a lot about listening to God, listening to our context, and listening to all of that. So gather with us, and it's going to be a great time. We're going to have campfire worship and s'mores and just all those good camp activities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited. So why should you come to the conference? There are 3 things that we are hoping that you will leave with. First is that you'll be equipped with new tools to engage your community. And then second, that you'll be empowered to reach those outside of your church. And third, that you will be energized to explore these new ways of being church. So we want to equip, empower, and energize you. And that's that's the goal of Rural Church Rising. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening in. And this will be available I'll put it up on our website and everything so people can watch it back. So thanks for being with me today, Jessica. This is great.
Yes, looking forward to October too.
I know. I was just thinking, actually, I wonder, because it's the end of October, 27th and 28th. So people that love Disney, doesn't Disney do a lot of like Halloween type stuff? So you can just stay and plan your Disney vacation around it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Halloween type stuff. Universal does a big thing too. And there's a lot of Orlando area things if people want to get into the Halloween spirit and want to plan a trip around it.
Yeah, so for sure.
Lots of good things to start planning.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Thanks everybody for listening in, and I hope to see you in October.